Alright, we're going to begin here with Psalm Book 5. I'm trying to fix my... Oh. Catland, well, with Psalm Book 5. Excuse me. I have here a quote to open this one up. This is William Beckford. He was a literary author from 1749 to 1844. He wrote this book called Vathek, which actually seems like a very interesting book, reading the summary, so I know exactly what I'm talking about here. But let's go ahead and read the quote, and I'll give you the briefest of synopsises. So here we have: when he was angry, one of his eyes would become so terrible that no person could bear to behold it, and the wretch upon whom it was fixed instantly fell backwards, and sometimes expired. For fear, however, of depopulating his dominions and making his palace desolate, he rarely gave way to his anger. Okay, so this is talking about this individual here, Vathek. All right, it's describing him of having a palace, so he was somebody of royalty. And this author was a French author, but he wrote this book previously unauthored. It was published as like an anonymous book, right? And people thought that it was original Arabic text, and it was originally written in Arabic. They thought this was actually from an Arabian setting and written at a certain time, because he did write this text with the Arabic setting, and it was they really thought it was from that land, and they used a lot of the literary tools that they would use at the time. But this author, William Beckford, he's actually a French author, writing kind of like an Arabian Nights kind of tale. So very interesting, especially since we're reading the Quran and such, to look into this. But Vathek was an individual who was royal. Obviously, he was royal. He had a lot of wealth, and he was constantly pushing the envelope with, oh, well, the Lord will always forgive me. I can go ahead and do this thing. Right, sounds familiar, I'm sure, right? The Lord was always with me. He was constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. He even thought he could bargain with some of the jinns, right? Some of the spirits, some of the devils, and make it out okay. Even visiting the gates of hell, he thought that he could challenge, right, the demons and the jinns, and therefore challenging God. And he thought he would make it out okay, and his soul would still be pure and saved. It was not, okay? And it also describes here in this quote that he had some problems with his anger and things like this. So he was always the type of individual to be pushing the envelope and thinking that he could never take it as far as to lose his soul. But in the end, he loses his soul, okay? So that is the brief synopsis explaining what happens to this Vathek individual. Of course, he goes on lots of adventures and things in between then, but we must be careful, okay? Despite how much we think we are right-minded and good and pure and always walking with the Lord, you never know when we can make a mistake and push the envelope too far to where it's impossible to return. And we'd like to think that it's never impossible to return and go back and resolve things and fix things, especially in the eyes of the Lord, as He is Ar-Rahmin, the most merciful, right? We always call upon His mercy. But you never know when the envelope is pushed too far, and you could end up losing your soul. And it's very, very a scary thought to think about. And even the most righteous individuals will have this fear of the Lord and will have this thought. Because the Lord can get angry too, okay? That's something that we don't put past Him, and we don't even want to test. The Lord can certainly become angry. So just keeping that in mind, we're going to go ahead and read these next Psalms, and just think about, how we don't push the envelope, how we ensure that we are always on the right track. And just reading through these Psalms in a very therapeutic way, I think will help us kind of retrain our brains, right? Reprogram us to be on this right path. Just the way that these are structured and written. We go into these next Psalms. Let me just fix the noise level here. doing some construction. We thought it was the garbage truck, but it looks like they are full on building a house out there. So, when we go into this next segment of Psalms 2 that are lettered with the Hebrew alphabet, we start with Aleph, and then we skip Beth because there were no verses that we needed to read in Beth. Then we go on to Gimel and such. So a lot of these next verses are going to be from the Hebrew, titled from the Hebrew alphabet. I don't know why they did it, but there is a great significance behind the Hebrew alphabet and its 22 letters. So we'll be reading through those. Each verse that was chosen through each of these letters of the Hebrew alphabet, all are related, okay? And think about what the relation is as we go through these. And think about, what are we saying over and over again? What is the most important thing that we could focus on during this time? So, I will continue here. We have here Psalm Book 5. And we have the next part after this too, which I'll finish up soon. Starting out with Psalm 107. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. He led them by a straight way, to a city where they could settle. Some became fools through their rebellious ways, and suffered affliction because of their iniquities. They reeled and staggered like drunkards. They were at their wits' end. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. They sowed fields and planted vineyards that yielded a fruitful harvest. God had spoken from his sanctuary. In triumph I will parcel out Shechem and measure off the valley of Succoth. David is speaking. Appoint someone evil to oppose my enemy. Let an accuser stand at his right hand. When he is tried, let him be found guilty, and may his prayers condemn him. He loved to pronounce a curse. May it come back on him. He found no pleasure in blessing. May it be far from him. Let him know that it is your hand, that you, Lord, have done it. Of David, the Lord is at your right hand. He will crush kings on the day of his wrath. He will judge nations, heaping up the dead and crushing the rulers of the whole earth. He will drink from the brook along the way, and so will lift his head high, he will lift his head high. The works of his hands are faithful and just. All his precepts are trustworthy. Surely the righteous will never be shaken. They will be remembered forever. They will have no fear of bad news in their hearts, are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. They will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Okay. So I will pause because this is a little bit contrasting what I'm saying, but the righteous really should have no fear, okay? No stark fear, but sometimes it's impossible not to feel a certain fear, especially if we're getting a certain message, or especially if we receive a warning. We always are thinking in the back of our heads, that you've made a mistake or there is some kind of issue that you need to resolve. With that, there is the difference between conviction and condemnation, okay? The righteous will fear or will experience conviction, which is a guide from the Holy Spirit to go ahead and correct something. If you're feeling condemnation, that is often conjured up by your lower self, or the shaitan or the devil. So keep that in mind. Righteous led will continue to be righteously led, okay? And then if you're feeling like a condemnation feeling, try to see where the conviction is in that, because it's most likely something that needs to be fixed or adjusted so you can continue on the straight path. Of course, this person that I was talking about in the quote, right, he never really sought out, right, the conviction part. He just kind of continued on his way, thinking he can do anything and everything and all would be okay. And that's what we want to avoid, obviously, from reading that narrative that was a bit like a warning. So let us continue. The Lord, he raises the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap. Tremble, earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob. But their idols are silver and gold, made by human hands. They have hands but cannot feel, feet but they cannot walk, nor can they utter a sound with their throats. The highest heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth he has given to mankind. It is not the dead who praise the Lord, those who go down to the place of silence. It is we who extol the Lord, both now and forevermore. Return to rest, my soul, for the Lord has been good to you. I will sacrifice a thank offering to you and call on the name of the Lord. The Lord is with me, he is my helper. I look on in triumph on my enemies, but I will not die, but live, and I will proclaim what the Lord has done. The Lord is God, and he has made his light shine on us. With boughs in hand, join in the festal procession up to the horn of the altar, up to the horns of the altar. All right, and this is where we start getting into the Hebrew alphabet. I will praise you with an upright heart as I learn your righteous laws. Be good to your servant while I live, that I may obey your word. Cause me to understand the way of your precepts, that I may meditate on your wonderful deeds. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. Preserve my life according to your word. I will speak of your statutes before kings, and I will not be put to shame. For I delight in your commands, because I love them. You are my portion, Lord. I have promised to obey your words. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I obey your word. Let your compassion come to me that I may live, for your law is my delight. They almost wiped me from the earth, but I have not forsaken your precepts. Oh, how I love your law. I meditate on it all day long. I have suffered much. Preserve my life, Lord, according to your word. Uphold me, and I will be delivered. I will always have regard for your decrees. And because I love your commands more than gold, more than pure gold, you are righteous, Lord, and your laws are right. I rise before dawn and cry for help. I have put my hope in your word. Many are the foes who persecute me, but I have not turned from your statutes. I obey your statutes, for I love them greatly. May my supplication come before you, Lord. Deliver me according to your promise. All right. So this here, right, each letter of the Hebrew alphabet has a couplet, right? It has a few verses. But the specific ones that we are reading, right, the ones ending in 7, 17, 27, 37, 47, 57, they're all in alignment, if you did not notice, right? We're always talking about the Lord's laws and statutes, how much they mean to us, how important they are to us, and how we enjoy to follow them, and how we enjoy to stay steadfast, right? Stay steadfast. So that's the message. And we will be getting into a little bit more of laws and statutes. Of course, when we discuss laws and statutes, we think of the 10 Commandments, right? A lot of people think that they're following them simply enough. But as the relationship with the Lord develops and grows, you'll find that you're receiving a little bit more of asks, right? You're having to make vows, right, to abstain from certain things, whether that be food, media, that type of thing. You're having to make certain vows, and you are upholding all of his decrees when it comes to purity, cleanliness. We talked about certain things like that as I'm staring at my dishes that are in the sink, okay? But purity and cleanliness, just brief little thing right here before I jump off. I took my Quran with me when I was traveling. It was in my suitcase. You know, I kept it in a section with all my other books that I was lugging with me. But I had my Quran with me when I was traveling. I took it out of the suitcase and I just began using it how I normally would, day in and day out. I noticed as I was praying and looking at the verses that I could recite during my prayer, They were a little disheartening. Like, I was feeling this conviction, if you will, this conviction, and like, that I was doing something wrong, there's something going on that I needed to correct. And I was praying for forgiveness for this thing, thinking that I was in big trouble, essentially. Noticing too, a little bit later, the cats had knocked off my book and it was on the ground, and I looked at it and I didn't pick it up. I just kind of looked at it and didn't think anything of it, really. But then eventually I picked it up, right? But there was an issue in that, right? There was an issue in me traveling with the Quran and kind of just being haphazard with it, and then also letting it fall on the ground and not really doing anything to pick it up and purify it. Of course, after I thought about it for some time, I don't know how the thought popped in my head, but I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do, right? To just, treat the Quran with a little bit of contempt, if you will, right? I was just, being casual. I think that's what we were talking about before, right? The casual nature of our worship shouldn't be so casual, because when you are worshiping the Lord, you are worshiping the Lord. If you are casual, you slip up, it really angers the Lord, I would say. It angers him, and it makes him feel like, oh, are you really worshiping me? Because, if you were worshiping me, you would not be doing all of these things so casually. Exactly, right? So I realized that I needed to call upon Al-Qudus to purify the Quran and to purify the book that I was reading from, so I would get sweet verses again, because I really was getting some scary verses, and I was a little bit not feeling so good these last few days. So basically asking Al-Qudus, I'm so sorry, right? Let me purify the Quran before I do this. Make sure the book is in the right place so the cats don't mess with it and knock it over. So, yeah, just a little cautionary tale, right? We all have experiences where we feel convicted. We feel like a little bit of fear, that we mess something up, something's not going the right way. So, to ensure you're on the right path, right, just make sure we're being extra cautious of our casual nature. What is that word? Casual, I think, is fine. I'll leave you with this, guys. Thanks for listening, and keep these laws in your mind, right? It can be not just the 10 Commandments, but other vows and other commitments that you have to the Lord to purify yourself, right? Purify yourself, really the most important thing that we could do today in this day and age, okay? Thinking about it. And then we'll have some more readings that do coincide with this purification and keeping the laws, the Lord's precepts, right? His precepts. We'll be reading a little bit more about that. We have one more section of Psalms, and that's it. We're done with the book. We're going to go on to Proverbs next. And we also have one more topic on resurrection, and then we're going to go into these precepts of the Lord within the same book that we've been reading. So thanks for listening, you guys. I'll catch you later. Have a beautiful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.